Hello, hello, hello. Hope you guys are all doing great. Hope you're all having a great Monday. We are back again, live talking some 49ers. This week it's going to be on my channel. So for those tuning in or those watching later, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Let us know what other stuff you want to see from the channel. And 49ers season is obviously now just around the corner. The preseason is officially over for all 32 teams. It's super exciting to be at this point now, and the questions are still going to be interesting to see what needs to be answered, especially for the old quarterback controversy, because there's a little controversy there.
Maybe you've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Yeah, but I'm joined today by my guy Ben MEYERSON, writer for all 49ers SI, just stuff for FSView for Florida State's student newspaper. Ben, how are we, man?
I'm doing well. Florida State football is right around the corner, so that is definitely gaining interest right now. But hey, man, I'm excited for this preseason to finally be over. This quarterback conversation keeps continuing. It just keeps getting deeper and deeper, man. It's funny. You'd think by now we'd have some of our questions answered, but I don't know. I only have more questions now than I did before the preseason. So things have gotten really interesting really quick.
Yeah. And that conversation still is going to be had within these next 2 weeks. I think the jury has still not been, told yet. There's still, a chance. There's still a 50-50 shot, that either quarterback could be starting week one, and it'll be interesting to see when that decision is made, and who, because Kyle Shanahan has come out and said he hasn't made the decision yet. When the decision will be made, how it will be made, and how the quarterbacks will be implemented in the system, because Kyle Shanahan has made it clear that Trey Lance is going to be playing this year, as he should. So that will be interesting to play out. But before we get into the quarterback stuff, let's just talk generally. 49ers go 2-1 in the preseason. Finished off with a strong 34-10 win against the Oakland Raiders, which, take it as you may, but still beating your former crosstown rival.
I was about to say, Vinny, you just said Oakland Raiders. Talking about the Las Vegas Raiders.
Man. Did I say Oakland?
You did say Oakland. It's okay. It's okay. Everyone, I've said San Diego Chargers at least once or twice recently, so don't feel too bad. Didn't
the Monday Night Football crew make a rule like you have to do 5 push-ups if you do that?
I think so, something like that. We can figure out a rule for.
I'll do it. I'll do it after the show. I'll do
5 push-ups for Vinny. Everyone keep track. We'll make sure you get those done. You'll post them on Twitter later for sure. But in terms of an overall grade for the preseason, for me, I'm gonna have to give it an overall B-. I would say. I don't think anything blew me out of the water or anything. There wasn't anything where I was like, oh my God, I was never expecting this. It was totally, surprising and all that. And I didn't really feel that way. I think it was more, there was a lot of confirmation for some things I felt like I already knew. What's up, Amin?
What's up, Amin?
How's it going, Amin? Amin's the GOAT. Everyone go subscribe to him if you haven't already. But yeah, so I would say a B- just because I think across the board, there weren't any huge surprises. There weren't any huge losses either, which I think is a great thing of importance for the 49ers. No season-ending injuries, no team-changing sort of injuries or moves or anything like that. So, yeah, I think overall it was a solid preseason for the 49ers. We saw the quarterback competition play out how we thought it would play out. I think it's, I don't think anything caught anybody off guard too much, but I look at the rest of that offense, for example, and I think really the only weak spot of that offense during the entire preseason has been that offensive line room. It's been a little underwhelming. I think the depth specifically has been super underwhelming. The fact that they don't have a real true swing tackle is a little scary. The fact that Jalen Moore is coming in starting at left tackle and Trent Williams isn't there is a little scary. But besides that, I think the offense overall was pleasantly surprising. The running back room was just as good. What's up, Swan Song?
What's up, Swan Song?
But the running back room was just as good as I thought it would be about. Trent Sherfield was a very nice surprise in the wide receiver room. And then, maybe Jalen Hurd makes the team. So I think overall with the offense, it's looking pretty good. And then on the other side of the ball, 49ers have the deepest defensive line in the NFL. I think there's no question about that. Top to bottom, they're going to let go of some guys like Zach Kerr potentially, who we're going to look back and they're going to be starting for other teams. So I think, it's the strength of their defense for sure. It's just same question we've had going back to even the NFL draft and before free agency, which is that secondary. How healthy will that 49ers secondary be? They have some guys. They have good starters. They have Jimmy Ward. They have Jason Verrett. They have Mosley. But beyond that, once you start getting injuries piling up a little bit, it gets scary. And if Tart isn't playing right away, and I know that's kind of been an in and out thing, like it's like he played a little bit in that Raiders preseason game. He's been activated. I mean, we'll see if he's going to be fully out there for week 1. But yeah, beyond that really deep defensive line, I would just say, like I said, secondary, offensive line, those are two areas of concern. And I don't think that's something that we didn't know wasn't in areas of concern already. So
yeah,
pretty good
exactly.
preseason overall.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the main thing why I would give it a B. I wasn't really surprised by anything too much. Like, I think if the surprises do come from individual players, but I think they are some like were kind of expected. Like, JaMychal Hasty kind of bursting onto the scene a little bit. I think we kind of knew like that the running back room was going to be that kind of competition. So that's where I wasn't really too shocked. I guess I was
plus, Vinny, I just wanted to say we've seen Hasty do that sort of thing before.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Not entirely new for him.
Yeah, and he was kind of more just like kind of just got like swept under the rug in the sense that we thought it was just going to be Mitchell, Goldman, Sermon, and Mostert. But I think with the way JaMychal Hasty's played, I think he's got a very good shot.
For sure,
making this roster,
and we'll discuss that later. But that running back room is cutthroat.
It's
right
stacked.
Now.
Yeah, it's stacked, and that's a good thing to have. And there are some things that Goldman does provide, like Swan Saw mentioned, he is a good blocker. But who's not to say that you could just put Juszczyk back there and put those kinds of things. And
exactly.
And then, is Goldman getting cut? Do we have a dead cap? I don't know. I know he's on a 1-year deal, but I don't know how much the cap. Yeah, I don't know how much the cap hit would be anyway. But I guess another small little surprise, I guess, was how comfortable D'Amico Ryans looks calling plays. I think I was a little concerned, and I get it. It's against it's preseason, and we can't really overreact. And I think the real test is going to come at week 3 when they play Green Bay. I think that's going to be his first big test, the first home game against one of the best quarterbacks to ever step on the field.
Sure.
That's going to be a big test for him. Not to say that these 2 games aren't going to be tests for him, because they will be.
But let's point this out, Vinny. They start with Detroit, who is considered the worst team in the last 10 years, and then they'll play Philadelphia next, who will be the worst team next season for sure. I think them or the Houston Texans will be one of the worst 2 teams in the NFL. So you're starting out with 2 real weaknesses. Then you go to Green Bay, like you've been saying. But then after that, it doesn't even get easier, Vinny. I mean, game 4 and 5 are Seattle and Arizona, both divisional games. So things start off somewhat easy, somewhat soft in the beginning. But then again, you come right back to your home opener. It's Green Bay and 2 straight divisional opponents.
Yeah, so. Green Bay, then you go Seattle, then you go Arizona. Like that's going to be a tough little 5-game stretch. And, maybe there's even more pressure on D'Amico Ryans in the first place to get those 2 wins, or to do his role to get those 2 wins against those teams that, based on talent and the roster, we know that they can get those wins easily. Because it does have a similar kind of feel to the 2019 start of the year. Like, you started 2 games on the road that time against the Bucs and the Bengals, 2 of which, we didn't know the talent level at the time, which I think that may be changed a little bit. Like, we know how good this team is with these guys, and then you come and, injuries kind of played a role. Like that week 3, that Pittsburgh game would have been a little more tough if Ben Roethlisberger was playing in that game. Also, side note, sorry if you hear background noise on my end. My house is doing a little cleaning right now, so they're playing music and doing all that good stuff. So, that in case you hear the weekend playing. That is because it's my house playing it. So
yeah, don't worry. He's not doing a private concert at Vinny's place.
No.
But I was looking up that Wayne Gallman, those numbers on his contract. If it's a post June 1 cut, it's $850 for the 49ers. So in addition,
they do get a little chump change, and
there's no dead cap associated. I believe I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, and it won't be too much of a not the biggest deal. Maybe just that goes towards the extra $1 million for one of these guys getting an extension, but it's not going to be altering anything too much. But yeah, D'Amico Ryans, I've been surprised with him. I think when we'll get in, well, I was going to say something about Jalen Hurd, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we will.
In general, though, I to your point about the offensive line, I think there is still some questions with it, but I think it was good seeing on that first series, seeing that first team O-line work with when Williams playing a series and Mac getting some reps. And I think that is a little more assuring. The question just comes with if one of those guys goes down, that's where the problem comes. And I think that'll be something that's interesting. Maybe right guard is still a question mark for some.
I think
Daniel Brunskill or Aaron Banks doesn't seem like he's at a good spot to start. But
that's been the 49ers issue, right? They have 4 really good offensive linemen. They just don't know who that 5th guy is yet. I think that's the biggest problem. I think if Brunskill was your swing guy, right, if he was your first lineman off the bench, that wouldn't really be bad, But it's just that first team offensive line was looking good. But like Vinny mentioned, any of those 4 guys is really key, important. Laken Tomlinson, Trent Williams, Alex Mack, Mike McGlinchey. Any of those guys get hurt, things get really scary for the 49ers. And of course, that's most teams with their offensive lines in general. But I feel especially with the 49ers, after you go to Laken Tomlinson, the drop-off after him is significant. It's huge. And the real issue for me is not – it's not that they don't have a starting right guard. It's that they keep trying to invest actual draft capital and money into it, and they haven't been able to figure it out, right? With Aaron Banks, I mean, you invested all that draft capital, and he's not – I mean, even if he was healthy right now, I would question if he was going to be on the 53-man roster. Now, I think he probably makes it because they took him in the second round, but I don't know if he deserved to make it. So I just hope that Aaron Banks pick isn't a whiff, because I think there's so many talented guys in that second round. And I've been over this before, but I don't like the strategy of taking guards as early as they took Aaron Banks. I feel like they could have waited later into the second and third round to do what they did. But, I think overall the O-line, it's not bad, like you're saying. It's just a question of after those 4 really great offensive linemen, 4 very good, I should say, offensive linemen. After that, man, things are not looking good.
Yeah, and Swan Song mentions here they did play the second team for the Raiders, right? It was
for sure.
It was it was the Raiders' second team, right? Not a lot of the Raiders played, and 49ers fans haven't really mentioned that, and they mentioned it all along with Lance, but now and then also here as well. Doesn't really get mentioned as much. And then, this is something that Swanson, like you mentioned, Asante Samuel was there, and that could have definitely helped them. And you talk about adding him, and they still make those picks with Thomas and Lenore. That's, not a bad strategy to have, especially if, seeing how Lenore is hit and Ambry's kind of struggled a little bit. But, you do have that.
And honestly, I think
Asante Samuel.
If they did go that way, they would have taken Asante and then not taken Ambry, and they would have taken someone else in that spot and still taken Demo.
And maybe that's the spot where they take the guard in that third round more so in the top second round. And then to answer the question here, I think he obviously would have looked good. Yeah, I mean, he's a good player, and maybe
two other names I think could have easily still fit on this team would be like Trayvon Moehrig, really good player too. He could have easily fit. The 49ers need another safety. Also, who's been looking really good for Carolina is Terrence Marshall Jr. That guy is Kendrick Bourne plus. And if the 49ers, really felt like they needed that third possession receiver, would have been a nice guy to go after.
Yeah. Carolina's going to be looking scary too in general. They've been doing a really, really good job of making those picks. And
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, overall, I think grade is B. I think a B is fair, somewhere in the B range. I think they were a little above average. I mean, going 2-1
Right.
is something to take note of, and it's not like they got blown out in the game they lost. It was only a one possession score, so lots of good to take out of it. Some things to obviously improve, and these next 2 weeks are going to be fun to figure out who's on the 53 man, and that'll come tomorrow. Does he have hands, Marshall or
Marshall's got hands. I mean, I don't know.
Samuel had a pick against the Niners.
Yeah, he did.
So
yeah,
those are good picks. So let's do our only. No, we have 2 quarterback topics, so we'll do this one first. We talked about it a couple weeks ago on my channel. What does Trey Lance have to do to get the week 1 job? And we talked about, if I'm not mistaken, making those right reads, doing, what he does best, using his legs and really just airing it out. If I remember correctly. And, now looking back on it, at the preseason here, Ben, do you think Trey Lance did enough to win the starting job?
I think if you just watch the games and nothing else, you would probably say no. But I think given that Kyle Shanahan, and then this is just going off reporting, obviously. This isn't anything I've seen in person. But going off the reporting we've seen from how they use Trey Lance in practice, how they utilize the zone read, along with everything we've seen from him in the preseason, I think he's done enough to earn the starting job. Now, I think the problem is that it's really not even a thing of has he done enough to earn it. For me, it's more a matter of, is he better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now? Does he make the team better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now as a football player, not as a quarterback? Because it's 2 different questions. And I think Trey Lance might not be a better quarterback, quote unquote, than Jimmy Garoppolo right now, but he's a better football player than Jimmy Garoppolo right now, and he absolutely makes his team better than Jimmy Garoppolo does if he's the starting quarterback. I think with the 49ers, with Trey, he just offers so much upside in terms of that running game, and with how dynamic Kyle is in calling that running game, that I think it'd be a mistake to sit him, honestly. And as we've seen him through these preseason games, the more and more he plays, the more decisive he looks, the more comfortable he looks working through reads, the more comfortable he just looks in the offense overall. It just proves to me that he needs to play more and more and more, and that giving him time on the bench isn't going to help him or elevate him in any way. In fact, I think it'll only cause a quarterback controversy. So I think for the 49ers, they just have to play Lance from the get-go and not think about it. You just have to go forward with Trey Lance and let him get that on-field experience, so that by the time you are getting to playoffs, by the time you are getting towards the end of the season, closer to the Super Bowl, Trey Lance is as good as you possibly could have gotten him. Because I think that gives the 49ers the best chance to win, more than Jimmy Garoppolo ever can give them the chance to win.
Yeah.
So I think because of all that, Trey Lance has to be the week 1 starter. If has he done enough to earn it quite yet? I don't know, but I think the guy in front of him hasn't done enough to absolutely, stave him off completely.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a thing where Jimmy's done so much that it's like, oh no, he can't start over Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. I don't see it like that at all.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the difficult part of this situation and this decision of when to start, because like you mentioned, based on what we've seen with the eyeball test and Trey, there are some things where you say, okay, he has to start week 1, and there's also like, okay, like maybe we should like hold back on, starting him for a little bit. But there also, Garoppolo didn't make it much easier with his struggles a little bit, and he made some decent throws yesterday, and not really much that anyone was really surprised by. I think it was a lot of just that 2019 playbook, hitting those receivers in those pockets of space that Shanahan designs, and he is making those throws, which are important. But yeah, and I also think this, going back to the schedule thing, I think the schedule also makes it hard too for him to start, in the sense that they know that they can win either game, both of those games, with either Garoppolo or Trey Lance, which makes that week 3 game ever more important as to who they're going to be. So do you want to take that advantage to, be more, I guess, assured of the quarterback play in Garoppolo and get those wins? Or do you want to, still have those chances to win those games with Lance, but also help get out some more of those kinks that he's, seen in these first, few weeks and, get him more reps that he needs to eventually become this franchise quarterback that this team drafted him to be? That's going to be the question that they're going to have to answer. And to answer the question directly on my end, in the eyes of Kyle Shanahan, I think no. I don't think Shanny's ready. I don't know if Shanny's fully ready to pull the trigger yet. I think there is still some, debate and some little hesitation there. But I could be very wrong. He could have just seen enough and just been like, screw it. I might as well just start the kid and see where it goes. I think it'll be,
Well, here's how I see that whole dynamic, Vinny, is that I think while Kyle Shanahan might feel a certain way about Trey Lance starting, I actually disagree with you. I think he does want Trey to start. I think the issue is that the team isn't completely fully bought in yet, right? So I think it's an issue of where part of this team, part of the mindset of this team is still stuck in that 2019, 2020 revenge tour mode, right? And because Jimmy Garoppolo was the guy to get them there, they still feel like, oh, he's the leader, right? And he's going out doing what Jimmy normally does in camp and all this sort of stuff, where I really think it's not, even though it is really Kyle Shanahan's decision, I don't know if he can pull the trigger on that decision if the team isn't fully behind it or if the team is fully against it. I mean, that would make it potentially catastrophic. So I think the problem is that the team might believe in Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think Kyle believes in Trey Lance. I don't know if the rest of the organization has gotten on board with him yet on that. So I think it's a really delicate thing where he almost has to go out and let Jimmy Garoppolo fail before he lets Trey Lance become the starting quarterback, even though Jimmy Garoppolo is already, not quite done enough to really prove much. But it's just so delicate of a situation considering all of the background circumstances with how these players interact, with how we know this organization interacts. It really seems like to me that Kyle probably wants Trey to start week 1. If not, he absolutely understands the advantages of it. I think he gets all the advantages, all the perks, the reasons why you want to do it. I just think for him, it's an issue of, is the rest of the team on board with this yet? And can I just roll this out there with no pushback from the rest of the organization? I think that's the issue right now for the 49ers.
Yeah, and part of it, too, is Kyle and John know their job is kind of on the line here. And so they got to, because if Trey doesn't hit or they don't have winning seasons, in these next 2, safe to say they'll probably at least one of them will be gone.
Well, it's pretty funny, Vinny. They're both in win now mode and building for the future. Right?
Yeah, it's a very unique circumstance that not a lot of teams are in. Right,
no,
there's not many few teams the Browns are kind of in that similar situation too, where they're more in win now, but they also got to kind of make a decision with Baker Mayfield here.
Yeah, but they're even in less of a win now than the 49ers are because they won more recently. That's the thing. If the Browns went out and just, made it to the playoffs and didn't win anymore, I think fans would be disappointed. But I think on the other end of the spectrum, right, it's like because they had already brought their team that far, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we see where this is moving. Where with the 49ers, it's Super Bowl or bust, unfortunately.
Yeah, in these next, and it's a tight window, and they feel a little like maybe it's not so much like a Super Bowl window. I mean, I think it is kind of a Super Bowl window, maybe not next year, but within the rookie deal of Trey Lance,
exactly
in those 3-4 years, because you've seen
by the end of year 4 by the end of year 4 with Trey Lance, that's your expiration date. That's the last year that you can try.
But and then again, at the same time though, if you go 10, 11 wins each of those 4 years, like then you're going to keep him.
Exactly.
Like, then I don't think that's a disappointment. But
no,
it's not guaranteed that they're going to win 10 wins. You're not Seattle. Seattle somehow, some way is going to get 10 wins every year. However way that they do it, it's nuts. The 49ers are not in that spot yet because they don't have a Russell Wilson. Maybe they have one in Trey Lance. We don't know yet. Maybe he's not even going to be the next Russell Wilson or the next Josh Allen or whatever it may be. Maybe he'll be the first Trey Lance. Exactly. And that'll be great to have. Like, Swan Song mentioned here, there's a lot of similarities between the two and Trey Lance and Josh Allen. And I think that's where I kind of see that comp in terms of player development. I'm not really expecting him to be this, all-out stuff. I'm not expecting him to be Josh Allen week one or year one. No. That's not fair expectations. Like, if he is, then the 49ers made the best pick of the draft.
Yeah, exactly.
Josh, right?
But I think the point is that physically Trey has at least some of the qualities that Josh does, right? He's very special in that sort of way. He's built
big, mobile, giant arm.
Big arm, all the great physical traits. But the fact is that with both him and Josh Allen, they needed game reps to get better at the things they needed to get better at to become the best version of themselves. That's why we're so insistent on Trey Lance starting right away. It's because it's for the best for the 49ers to let Trey play as early as possible.
Long term, it's definitely better if they start Trey Lance.
Yeah. So, and it's like, with the Ravens, think about this with the Bills, with the Chargers in the last few years, these teams who have not started quarterbacks week one, what advantage does it give you? What does it do? I don't think it does anything. I haven't found the legitimate argument. Now, Patrick Mahomes is a little different because he actually sat for the whole year, but also Lamar Jackson played the last 8 games of the season. Herbert was playing by game 2. So was Josh Allen. So
and the thing about Mahomes too, like, he did not throw 50 touchdowns in his first year starting because he sat behind Alex Smith. Let's make that clear. He's Patrick Mahomes. He could have started and he could have done that same exact thing that Alex Smith did in that year before when he sat. He could have easily done that. Like, you don't just throw 50 touchdowns just because you sat behind Alex Smith. Alex Smith is good, and you got Andy Reid. And, I think this could be, speaking of that, it could kind of be a similar situation where you could see some similar results with that, between the Kansas City and what they did with Mahomes and what the 49ers could do, because they both have great offensive minds at their head coach. Both positions also have really good skill position players around them that can, help increase their game and increase their volume as well. It's not – I don't think it'll be as good because no one is Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to be that good. But, you look at all the other receivers and, skill position players on both sides. Who's to say that they can't have at least similar numbers statistically? Because the only really comp I guess you can really give – as of today is George Kittle and Kelsey. I think you look at the other skill positions, I think Tyreek Hill is better than both Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Maybe it's just next, like, week 2, maybe wide receiver 2. Those guys are better. Yeah, and Kansas City just has a better weapon. So I think that's where – and both receivers bring different assets to their offenses that help the offensive coordinators and the play callers help. Like, the 49ers wide receivers are more possession guys. And so Kyle is really good at drawing up those plays just to get those guys open and let them use their hands. And, Tyreek Hill just has – like, no one's going to have Tyreek speed. Like, he's just that fast. And that's the different dynamic that I think he brings. But looking at the 49ers offense, they have players like that too that could have those similar kind of impacts on this offense.
They have great playmakers, and I think
exactly
the thing is with that Patrick Mahomes talk, it's really just, to me, it goes back to this whole idea that it's like look, sitting Patrick Mahomes or sitting one of these types of players in terms of further development, I've seen no.
Yeah, sorry about that noise.
No worries. I've just seen no real example of when actually, like, sitting a quarterback aids in their development whatsoever. In fact, I think if anything, it might stunt a quarterback to make them sit longer rather than later. And the only true example I think you can even go back to is if you go all the ways back to like Aaron Rodgers. Like even then, it's like that was such a unique situation. And like Swan Song is saying, the NFL is so different today than it was 10 years ago. I mean, just look in the last 3-4 years at the way quarterbacks have started. Look at Baker, what happened with him, with Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, all these guys, like they start eventually at some point their rookie season. So the idea that waiting gives some extra bit of juice to them or helps them out a little bit more, I don't know. I think, getting them as many game reps and good looks as possible so that they can learn being a quarterback is the most important thing. So with Trey, man, just get him that experience. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be fun to see how they are both going to be utilized, which goes into our next topic. We saw it for one play, I think. Both quarterbacks were on the field. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, was there a play when they were both on the field or no?
No, they weren't both on the field. It was a series. So
they were within the series. They were switching off and
exactly. And we saw this preview from Kyle Shanahan against the Raiders on Sunday. I believe it was 2 series actually. The first series, Jimmy Garoppolo came in, and then Trey Lance, I believe when they were around the midfield area, came in, missed a passing play, then did some rushing plays, brought them closer to the red zone. Jimmy came back in, finished off the drive. And then Jimmy started the next drive. Trey came in, Jimmy came in, then Trey finished off the drive in the red zone for the second one. So I think we got this preview of what the 49ers potential 2-quarterback system could look like. But Vinny, I don't know about you, man. I'm not a fan of the 2-quarterback system. We saw this a couple of times during this game where there were issues that you saw where Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance even was losing confidence one way or the other, right? Where Jimmy was like putting his head down, running into the end zone, trying to run over Raiders. But
dude, you're trying to win your starting job here. Please don't get yourself hurt. Yeah.
But to me, Vinny, that's the problem you run into with the 2-quarterback system is you have Jimmy Garoppolo going out and doing something he shouldn't be doing because of the pressure that you're putting on him.
Yeah.
So I think by giving no quarterback the job, like I always go back to that old NFL adage. It's like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. I really think you need one quarterback because within the flow of a game, within the rhythm of a game, trying to break up the series like the 49ers were in those 2 against the Raiders, I just don't think it works long term. I think you can get away with doing some things, I think you can get away with doing it in certain games. I think you can get away with doing it if you have Taysom Hill. But Trey Lance isn't Taysom Hill and Jimmy Garoppolo isn't Drew Brees. So I don't know why the 49ers think they can run that sort of 2-quarterback system where you're constantly, it's like they're handing it off back and forth. I think you got to stick with one guy or the other, or if you are going to play Trey Lance and play Jimmy Garoppolo, what you need to do is you need to insert Trey Lance in certain red zone situations, right? And just let him play out the rest of a series. Don't take him in and out. Don't yank him in and out. Don't yo-yo the situation. You need to just stick with whatever you're sticking with and be confident in that, because otherwise those quarterbacks' confidence is going to waver. And I think that's the main problem I saw on Sunday with the Raiders game is that there was some wavering in the quarterback's confidence, and it didn't feel like they were 100% in on this. So I'm really worried about the locker room getting split up, but most of all, I'm worried about both of these quarterbacks just being able to gain some level of confidence.
Kind of add on to what your argument earlier about the Garoppolo, I think it works on the other side too. You make yourself a lot more predictable when you have switched the 2 and you put Trey in for running plays, right?
Exactly.
Not to mention that Trey Lance can probably make those throws. So what's the point of doing that? If you know that he can make those throws, maybe you're trying to be like Baltimore when they had Flacco and Lamar, but then Lamar just eventually took over and it was just better and they made the playoffs because of it. So maybe that's a similar situation that they fall into. I'm not a big fan of it either, especially mid-series. Like if you want to switch every other series, that's a little
Or
fine,
even
with that.
like I was saying, Vinny, like if you're gonna switch him mid-series, wait till you're like over midfield and let the guy finish out the rest of the series. Don't yank him back in and out, which is what the
You can
49ers
have like
are
first, like it's not like Garoppolo plays first and third, and
doing.
and Trey plays second and third on every other drive or every other set of four downs that you have. That doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think we're going to see it as much as what Kyle is making it out to be. I think it's going to be still. I think they're going to stick to one guy. I think we'll see a lot more of Trey, if anything, in red zone packages. I think that's where we'll really see him. But yeah, it does make it a lot smoother and a lot more efficient when you do just have one guy starting, and it makes it a lot. It gives you more options of what you could do when you just start one guy. As crazy as that sounds, versus starting two guys, you do have a little more versatility with starting just one guy.
Yeah, and
it's not as confusing.
Yeah, and just going back to what we've been saying, like Trey can do most of, if not all, of what Jimmy Garoppolo does, and Jimmy Garoppolo pretty much can't do what Trey Lance does, So
yeah,
I don't know what we're talking about anymore, man.
Yeah. Did Jalen Moore impress? I didn't watch the game yesterday, so I couldn't watch the game. I didn't really watch much snaps with it.
I would say Jalen Moore played pretty well. I mean, I know I'm looking here at just so I have my snaps right. So he played 40 snaps. He graded out well with PFF. I watched him a little bit. I just don't know how great it is for Jalen Moore to be the swing tackle right now, right? I think it's like Jalen Moore, I believe, was playing guard in college. Now he's playing backup left tackle for the 49ers. And if Trent Williams gets hurt, you're a fifth-round rookie. He's your starting left tackle. So, I mean, I know he's done well throughout this preseason, but again, when you're working against second, third-team guys, you can look a lot better than you actually are, and it's just a situation where I would rather have Daniel Brunskill be that swing tackle than I'd rather have Jalen Moore. But like we've been saying, the 49ers already made that problem for themselves. So, I mean, they got to move Brunskill to right guard, and they got to rely on Moore for those other spots. So, yeah, I mean, Moore's been okay this preseason, but I don't think it's ideal to have him be your swing tackle. Yeah, he needs right guard reps.
Yeah, maybe that could help. Maybe that could help him with that. Thank you for everybody that's been tuning in throughout the show. Really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Follow Ben's stuff as well. His link is in the description of the video, so be sure to check all of that great content. So last two topics that we got, we're going to be doing a little bit of prediction time. The two probably biggest talking points, especially on the offensive side of the ball, who is going to be in the wide receiver room. And I think they made some moves in that department as well, putting Richie James on waivers after previously putting River Craycraft on Rivers and picking him back up off of those waivers because nobody claimed him. And then Jalen Hurts back in the mix. That would be interesting to, find out with two and some other guys they could be signing. Travis Benjamin on the team already. So I'll go first, I guess. Who will be in the wide receiver room come week one? I think they're going to take 6 guys. I think that's pretty safe. They've been pretty, based on history, that's what they've done. They take 6 guys. Yeah, and that's
what we're both going to do. They've done 6 guys.
Yeah, we're both going to do 6 guys. And then when we get to the running backs, we'll do 4.
4 each, yeah.
So I'm going to go, obviously, Debo and Ayuk, I think, are going to be the 2 starters. I think wide receiver 3 is going to be Trent Sherfield.
Okay.
I think he's earned that spot, and you see the versatility that he has with his speed, getting downfield. He's kind of that deep ball threat for the team. Receiver 4. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you want to talk about that third wide receiver role, I think what we've seen him do in the preseason, playing X, playing Z, playing all across the field for the 49ers, he's really versatile in a way where if either one of the number 1 and number 2 guys goes down for San Francisco, right, they can stick him and play him in that role. Now, he's not going to be as good as those guys, but he can replicate some of what they're doing already. So I think that's what makes him a really nice wide receiver 3.
Yeah. Wide receiver 4, I'm going to go Mohamed Sanu. I think just providing that veteran presence, that veteran leadership is going to be good. And, he can throw the ball a little bit. So maybe there's some trick plays where he's going to be in. And they have 4 wide receiver sets. Could see that from him. And, he has had a pretty decent training camp and, has made his catches that he's needed to make and to get him a spot on the team. So I'm going to go Sanu at 4. 5, I'm going to go Jawan Jennings. I think he's been I think he's been a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think he's played really well, and he does have some Kendrick Bourne tendencies that, Kyle Shanahan obviously likes, making tough catches in tough spaces, using his ability to break tackles and using his size to do that. I think he's earned that wide receiver 5 spot. And wide receiver 6, I think Jalen Hurd makes the team. I think seeing him yesterday was a very promising sign. Yes, he did look a little rough in some instances, but I think that's understandable. The guy hasn't played in 2 years. That makes sense. And he hasn't played in the NFL yet. So I understand that. And, it's not so much of, what they don't have with Jalen Hurd and why he makes the team. I think it's more of a question of, who's really better than him.
Exactly.
At this point.
I think the point is, and maybe tell me if I'm overstepping, Vinny, but I feel like I've heard multiple people make this point already, so I'm not going to pretend like it's original. But I don't feel like anyone else is beating Jalen Hurd out right now well enough to be able to overtake him, right? No one's done anything over and above to where 49ers are going to say to themselves, oh dang, we're dropping this guy. He's going to get picked up by this team. Like, I don't think they're in that kind of scenario. So keeping like a Jalen Hurd and then maybe waiting out, seeing how the drop market goes, seeing how teams, who gets waived from other teams, who's on rosters. You could just easily be like, okay, we're going to keep Jalen Hurd. And let's say a team goes and waives a wide receiver you really like, go pick him up and drop Jalen Hurd. It's easy as that. So
yeah, I actually do think, though, I think Jalen Hurd is more of a catch for teams than any of the other receivers on the 49ers, though.
Really? I don't think so, just because he hasn't played, man. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the problem, and I get it. But if you just look at, the evaluation of Jalen Hurd and, what he brings to teams, I think and it's a fair point. It's in like the characters and the skill set that he brings, isn't really – you can't really compare it to the other guys. But to your point, we haven't seen that yet because he hasn't played. And I think that's a big concern that's holding him back because I think – again, I think I mentioned this last time or I mentioned it before, but the 49ers made the right evaluation when picking Jalen Hurd. I think you look at the skill set that he brings, his big body, his speed, his ability, his athleticism. I think they made the right evaluation making that pick. I just think the run of injuries was just an unfortunate thing. Yeah, you could have picked Terry McLaurin in that 3rd round. But did we also know Terry McLaurin was going to be that good? Yeah, maybe not at the level that he's arguably a top 10 receiver in the league. I don't think anybody really, necessarily expected that. Maybe it's not fair to put those expectations on Jalen Hurd because I don't think those were there. But given, the value of what you can get,
he hasn't played an NFL
picks,
snap, so
exactly
that's the tough part.
That's the toughest part, and that's the thing that kind of just holds him back, I guess. Yeah.
So for me, I was just gonna say, for me, in terms of the wide receiver room, I'm pretty much there with you. I think we only have 1 or 2 differences. So I'm definitely going Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, of course, number 1, number 2. I think wide receiver number 3 sneaky could be Jawan Jennings, but I think it's probably Trent Sherfield right now. So I will say Trent Sherfield number 3. I think Jawan Jennings absolutely number 4, no question. Yeah. I think, in fact, and I'll get to this. I don't think Mohamed Sanu makes the team, actually.
Okay.
I think Jalen Hurd is the next wide receiver. Then I have 1 more. And like I said, I don't think Mohamed Sanu is just going to make the team just because of the cap with him and the fact that they can cut him and get extra money. So I think instead, because they don't have much solidified at the returner position, I'm going to go with Nasimba Webster, actually, who I think is really interesting for a couple of reasons. For one, he's not quite your traditional wide receiver, right? So he's not going to be doing your traditional wide receiver stuff in the offense if he is playing in the offense. But what he does offer on the offensive side of the ball is some of that Deebo Samuel stuff, some of that Ayuk stuff that we see behind the line of scrimmage, right? The motions, the jet sweeps, the end arounds, all that good stuff. He can be a true gadget player in that sort of way. I really think Webster is like just a gadget guy on offense, and that's not a knock on him. That's just what he is. And then in terms of the return game, he has a lot to offer. So in terms of Sanu's costs, I can look that up in a second. But I know the 49ers are saving a couple $1 million if Sanu isn't on the team week 1. And the way they can actually execute it is if they want to, they can not have him on the roster week 1, re-sign him when week 2 comes around, and then just pretty much save the money and have him be on the team anyways. So that's what I think will likely happen. And I think what they'll do is they'll keep Webster or Jalen Hurd as that, fringe guy. And depending on Hurd's health, they'll either swap Hurd out for Sanu or swap Webster out for Sanu. Yeah. That's how I see it.
Is there a chance River Craycraft makes this team?
No chance. No chance. Not in my opinion.
I think there's a shot.
I think there's here's the problem for River Craycraft is that there are 3 guys who are potentially going to make the team who are all the same. It's not all the same, but it's the same sort of situation where it's him, Travis Benjamin, and Nasimba Webster, where it's like you're going to have to be picking one of those guys.
You kind of got to throw Richie James Jr. in that combo too.
But the 49ers waiving him, it doesn't look
they waived him.
So it doesn't look like he's going to make the team at all. Otherwise, he would have totally been in that conversation. But they have these 3 guys who are totally in the same book, and where it's like they can do some stuff on offense, but I'm really more interested in their value in terms of special teams. And I think Nasimba Webster has the best special teams potential. I think Travis Benjamin is a little over the hill. And I just haven't been too impressed with River Craycraft in terms of his special teams work. So if we're leaning on one guy to make the team, I think it'll be Webster just because he's that much better of a special teams guy. Just because outside of being a returner, he can also do some of that gunner stuff. He can do some of that sort of role. So when we're talking about the end of the 49ers roster, I think these are the types of things they're thinking about. They're not thinking about is River Craycraft or is Nasimba Webster a better wide receiver. It's more about what role are they going to fill in special teams? How much are they going to contribute? And honestly, I think the 49ers see Webster as more of a contributor than they do see the other guys. So that's why I'm going with him.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think we got general. It's just one guy, 2 guys. No, one guy that we don't both have. I have Sanu. You have Webster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who knows? Elijah Mitchell could be a kick returner guy. He has some good reps there.
Yeah. We're about to talk about that.
Yeah, we're about to talk about running backs. Let's transition now. This is our last topic of the day. Thank you for everybody that's been watching, tuning in, like, comment, Subscribe, do all that fun stuff. All right, running back room. I think I'll let you start this time. I think there's 2 names probably that are for sure going to be making the team. I think we both have those names.
Yeah. Let's start with the obvious. Let's start with Raheem Mostert and Trey Sermon.
So, Raheem had a good day yesterday too.
Raheem had a very good day yesterday. He looked really fast. He had some great burst. And then Trey Sermon. Listen, I haven't been overly impressed by him during the preseason, but I also think it's a function of he was kind of in and out of the offense a little bit, no real rhythm in the running game, and they were playing with a starting offensive line, then backup offensive line. It was kind of all over the place, so I don't blame Sermon too much for not that he hasn't looked good. It's just he hasn't quite popped like I was hoping to see him pop in the preseason. Then the next 2 guys I'm going to go with are Elijah Mitchell. Swan Song just brought him up, I think, in the comments, talking about his kick return potential. And he did look good in that kick return game. Or Jason did. Yeah. I mean.
And Swan Song did too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he can do a lot in terms of the kick return potential. And then I really think they want to get a good look at him in terms of the future because they did spend a 5th-round pick on him. And you just don't want to cut 5th-round picks and put them on the practice squad just to do that. So I think they're going to want to keep him. The last guy, I really think it's going to be Michael Hasty. And I think it's for a few reasons. I think, for one, if the 49ers were to try and put JaMychal Hasty on the practice squad, the Rams or the Seahawks would have signed him the next day, like very easily. No questions about that. I think with Wayne Gallman, he's a more experienced guy. We've seen him more, but I just think we've seen JaMychal Hasty for so long. I want to reward him, and I think he's earned this spot on the roster. And honestly, like this fourth running back spot doesn't matter as much because Jeff Wilson Jr. is coming back midseason, and this guy's just going to get bumped down to the practice squad anyways. So I think it's a situation where the 49ers are going to say they want to keep Hasty on the roster to, if not, keep him on the roster over Goldman, at least keep him away from divisional opponents, from them, picking him up right away. So I think Hasty will be that last guy. I think Goldman's going to be the odd man out. And I also think it's a money thing too, where they can save money if they get rid of Goldman. They can save $1 million, I believe. So I think it makes the most sense to go with Hasty as the younger play, just because of all the situations, everything we've seen from him so far, and his familiarity with the system. So yeah, I really think Hasty's going to be that last guy.
And then I think all 5 guys I think will be on the roster in one way. I think one of those guys will make the practice squad because, like you mentioned, I don't think Shanahan wants to lose those guys and give them to. I know the Rams just traded for Sonny Michel,
right?
But looking at what Shanahan has done, if one of those guys goes, then McVay could very well easily pick him up, or Green Bay, whatever team. Excuse me. I have the same room. I think Raheem's going to be the starting running back of this team. I think that's pretty solidified. Like you mentioned, his bursts, his vision, and his ability to, hit the hole at 100% and just go, and his breakaway speed. I think that's just, and obviously his familiarity with it. I think that's just too much to ignore. And they'll take, so by the way, they'll have 5 running backs rostered, but one of those spots is going to be Kyle Juszczyk. So that's why we're saying 4.
Yeah, and you know who looks good, Vinny, and who I know the 49ers are going to feel bad putting on the practice squad is Josh Hokett.
Hokett, yeah. He's been good.
If the
He's
49ers,
been really good.
Yeah, if they hadn't re-signed Juice, I don't want to say they would have been fine, but I think they would have been.
He looked good.
I think they would have been okay, honestly.
Yeah.
He looks really good in this offense. And that's another guy where it's like, man, we're going to have to put him on the practice squad. I don't know. I think if anything, Kyle probably tried to hold him back a little bit because he knows he doesn't want another.
Yeah, maybe he's the guy that makes the roster instead of one of these. Maybe instead of Hasty. Maybe. We'll see. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Just because I think with Hasty, he has so much upside, like we saw in some of those games he played in last season, where if you need him to come in and be that last running back, he can do it. I just don't think it's ideal. But he certainly has the ability.
Yeah, exactly. Swan song you mentioned here. If I were the Jets, why wouldn't you pick him up? Right?
Josh Hokett, yeah.
Jets could very well, familiarity with not much he would have to change with.
Yeah, and I think the Jets today are working out Deion Jordan, former 49er, so they're definitely trying to poach those guys.
Yeah. If they just took 5 wideouts, I don't think they will, but if they did, then maybe they add a 4th tight end, or maybe they try to make one of these. Maybe Jordan Matthews makes the roster, right?
Or maybe it's Sudfeld season.
Yeah, or maybe they take 3 running backs. That could be definitely something.
Quarterbacks. Actually
taking Hurts, and do you see people? Yeah, I do. I think Nasimba would be taken. I think any of these guys could be taken. I think the most hesitancy would obviously come with Hurd because of that injury.
I disagree, man. I really think NFL teams just wouldn't be willing to spend a roster spot at Hurd, at least this late into the process, right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about 53-man rosters at this point. If another team wanted to put him on the practice squad, I would understand that. But I just think teams value their roster spots too much at this point to consider putting Hurd on a roster. And then with Sanu, I think he's just so old at this point, and it's like if he doesn't make the Niners roster, I don't really know what teams are going to be super interested in him, considering he hasn't shown much recently. So, but Webster, I could see him being picked up for sure. That's a guy I would be scared to try and like, oh yeah, we're just going to let go of him, because you never know.
Yeah. Teams can definitely use his speed. Like, speed kills in the league.
Well, and just the kick returning. I mean, it's becoming rarer and rarer. So to have one of those guys, it's a valued skill set for sure.
Yeah. With Mullins being out there, they can use Reese putting Sudfeld on the PR practice roster.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm gonna go Raheem at 1.
Okay.
Sermon at 2. 3. I'm gonna go Hasty at 3.
Okay.
I think he's done enough, and Elijah Mitchell not playing in the first 2 games I don't think really helped.
For sure.
I think seeing the reps and seeing that little burst that you can get from him, I think he'll be that fill-in spot until Jeff Wilson Jr. comes back. Then I think Jeff Wilson Jr. will take his spot. And then running back 4, I'm going to go with Elijah Mitchell, given the special teams ability that he has and his speed and him kind of being maybe that Mostert replacement eventually once they move on from him, getting him those reps, kind of like what Mostert was like in 2017 and 18. Being a little lower on the depth chart, but slowly moving his way up, I could very well see him doing that. And that leaves out Wade Goldman, which is unfortunate because I think a lot of 49er fans were excited to see him play. And, he had done pretty well in New York, filling in for Saquon Barkley last year, but I think he hasn't shown enough volume and shown not enough production in that volume to really, pull away and be one of the top running backs on this team. And I think he still could be a practice squad guy, but I think teams are going to take him up and, really pick him and stuff. So, we got the same running back room. And we will find all of that out tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the day.
When the teams are made. So that's going to be it for us. We have like 2-3 more minutes. So if you guys have any last-minute questions that you want us to answer, please type them in right now super quick. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. My Twitter is going to be right here. Ben's is right under his name as well. Subscribe to his stuff. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Leave a like, comment. Let us know what you think of the episodes, what more you want to see. Maybe we'll have a special guest on one of these episodes these next few weeks. That could be fun that we do. Biggest hot take from the 53.
I don't know if I have a
from what we haven't said. I don't know.
I think it's Sudfeld season all the way, honestly.
You think he makes the team?
I don't think he should make the team, but I think he will. I just don't know why they put it out there like that, man. The way they talked about having 3 quarterbacks potentially, it's like kind of weird. And I think with Jimmy's money and everything, it just makes it so weird that it's like they might feel like they have to keep that 3rd guy on the roster just in case they get a 1st-round offer for Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sorry, Swan. Yeah, I'm sorry, man, but that's how I'm feeling.
I'm gonna go. Here's my hot take. I think Diamador Lenore will be cornerback 2, week 1.
Oh wow, really?
I think he's played so well and he's been so locked down there and not being able to see Mosley and
let me throw this out. I was actually going to say I feel like he might play as that 3rd or 4th corner, honestly.
Yeah.
And the way they might do it, and just hear me out, is they might play Mosley right away in that cornerback to that outside spot, right? And then give Timo some inside looks at that slot corner when they play nickel, when they play dime, when they do all that. So if they play more corners during games, that they have like 3-4 corner looks, I feel like would be more of a good way to introduce him early on, right? And then slowly work him into it. And by the time you're closer to the bye week, then maybe he's cornerback 2. But I mean that's old, man, to put him just.
I guess another one too I have is Marcel Harris will make the roster as a linebacker. They'll put him in the linebacker groups.
For sure.
I think that's I don't think he'll be with the safeties anymore. I think he'll be with the linebackers, and he'll be listed as a linebacker for the team. So those are my hot takes. That's going to do it for us today. thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next Monday with some other stuff. I'll be I just started a new podcast with Niner Nate that we've been doing these past couple of weeks. Most of it's been on his Twitter, so go check it out there. And I've been retweeting it too. Obviously, it's called Niner Nate's Nonsense. I won't be on this week, I don't think, but next week I'll be back. So some of the stuff I'm doing, Ben, what's some of the stuff you got coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna be putting out some more streams in the next couple of weeks. I'll keep everyone updated. Just follow me on Twitter. I mean, I'll be shit posting there. So
yeah,
just go check that out.
Sweet. That's gonna do it for us today. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. Hopefully you guys can feel a little less anxious heading into tomorrow when the roster is all filled out. Probably not knowing 49ers Twitter, but that's okay. We'll have a lot more stuff to talk about next week.
Good
Thank
reactions.
You. Oh, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and go Niners. Peace out.
Peace out.